I hope nobody JPP'd it today or yesterday. The Simmons George Giants Trade Talk brought to you by the mighty FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com, the number one sportsbook in America. Oh, it was the 4th of July. It was the ceremony. It was the fun. It was the pomp. It was the circumstance. It was the 250th anniversary or birthday of America. You don't look a day over 125. Oh, we got Giant football training camp rocketing this way. Believe it or not, we have our first open. I Bleav rookies report on the 27th. We got opening training camp for 3 days coming up as well. It's crazy that the season is almost here. Well, I should rephrase it. The start of the season is almost almost here, and we have some questions. We have some innuendos. We have some injuries to report. I don't like speculating on players' injuries because of the fact that, it's their own personal injuries, it's their own personal updates, it's their own personal schedule. So there's no alarm that could go off. But I keep hearing things about Malik Nabers, and then I started hearing things a little bit about our old buddy Cam Skattebo. And we reported the other day that Malik Nabers potentially could not be back with the Giants until week 3. Now, you got to remember, he injured the knee in week 4. So we're looking at we're going to be closing in on 11 months soon, because he suffered the injury September 28th, 2025. We had the cleanup afterwards. Now, the cleanup doesn't bother me because, like I said, cleanups happen. A lot of time you get some bone fragments, you get some scar tissues, you got some other things you gotta move on from. So I'm not gonna sit there and be concerned about that, because I don't think that's delaying the injury. Good morning, Tyron. What's up? Where's Spy Guy? Where's Spy Smasher? There's Spy Smasher in his house. Joe Spano says, "Oh, good here. How was everyone's day?" We got WK saying, "I'd complain, Joe, but who would listen?" Davey says, "Hey, Tim, my favorite Giants and Knicks creator. What's your opinion on the Drummond signing?" We're going to get to Mr. Drummond, because I'm still pissed about him from the Phil Jackson era, but we're not going to get into that. I hear you. Tim is aging like the president after South Beach. I was actually just outside. I got up early to do some weed whacking, because we got big storms coming, so we flood in certain areas in the back. So I had to do some weed whacking and almost put like a drainage ditch, because down below the house there's like a I don't know what you would call it. It's not a swamp, because it's not. It's a marsh. It's like a marsh. And a lot of the water runs into the marsh. So we have to make sure that we get some. How come you're not wearing your Knicks gear today? Because, like I said, I just came outside from whacking weeds. The Knicks are old news. WK also says, "What does Slayton have to do this year to get re-signed?" Nothing, because that motherfucker's got to go. I love Darius. I got to get back to Malik Nabers, but I love Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, who's only been on one winning team his entire career, basically said during this free agency, "I'm going to a winner. I'm going to a winner. No more of this losing shit for me. Hold my beer. I'm re-signing with the Giants." I didn't like the re-signing of Darius Slayton. I mentioned it numerous times. You had an opportunity to get away from Darius Slayton. I'm not saying Darius Slayton is a horrible wide receiver, but Darius Slayton does have the oopsies, does have the drops. So I'm not going to sit there and tell you that Darius Slayton's not a 3 or a 4 on a good team. This is a guy that only had 538 yards last year, and I think playing in 14 games. Had over 500 yards. Now had 2 consecutive seasons of over 500 yards, just 500 yards. Before that, he had 2 consecutive seasons of 700. And before that, he had that season where he went in the doghouse, but then he had 700 yards each year. I mean, he's got a total of 22 touchdowns in 106 games. In 106 games, he's only has 4,438 yards, which is an average of 41 yards per game. This wasn't a guy I looked at and said, we need to re-sign this cat and give him some big fucking cash. I didn't see that. So he's going to have to do a lot What's up, A-Trax? Good morning. What's going on, G-Mission? Slayton will not see the field with a good... No, he service. Patrick Grove said it best right here. Darius Slayton is serviceable. Darius Slayton is a third, fourth wide receiver on a playoff team or a good team. And third is pushing it. On the Giants, he's a 1. Giants, he's a 2. Sorry about it. My arm hurts. I drank with his arm today. I was in the garage and I was moving one of the motorcycles and I wasn't paying attention. And then we have a regular smoker that I put in the garage because of the big rain. So when I was coming out of the garage, I didn't see it. I went slam. And I was like, oh, motherfucker. He drops the easy ones. He catches the hard ones. He drops the easy. But let's get back to Malik Nabers. Can we get back to Malik Nabers for a second? Because I told you guys about Mr. Greg says when it hits Slayton's hands, that's a drop. You ain't lying. I wish you were lying. Mr. Perry says, yes, Slayton is good. He's just not the no. Slayton is an NFL. Slayton, like Patrick said, is a serviceable NFL wide receiver. Is he? Yes, thank you, Joe Ferris. That's exactly why I moved it in the house. I didn't move in the house. I moved it in the garage. Like the big green eggs, I just throw the covers over. But the smoker, you get water in that motherfucker. You get water in that fucking smoker. It's a fucking disaster. So I literally had to move it from the back of the house into the garage, and that's like a fucking quarter mile. So I'm literally sitting there trying to carry this motherfucker in. My son won't get up. And I'm dragging it at one point because I'm like, it's going to rain again. And it's supposed to have these heavy storms again this afternoon. If you get water in that fucking smoker, it's done. It's not done, but it's a bitch to clean up. But getting back to Malik Nabers, Joe Spano trying to keep us on track. Getting back to Malik Nabers, I mentioned that I heard a report that week 3 is the projected time. Now, he had his ACL and his meniscus repaired. I don't know if it was the mid meniscus or the meniscus. There's 2 of them because I had my last surgery. I had my ACL replaced and I had a tear in my meniscus and my mid meniscus, and I had a slight tear in my medial collateral ligament. So it was bad. So the Giants right now are still, and you still hear John Harbaugh saying, well, he could be back as early as, week 1. And it's interesting because I look at that and I listen to that, and he's not saying he's going to be back on the field by week 1. He's not saying that he is playing by week 1. This is the thing with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is very astute in the form of politicalism. That's not a word, but I just like making shit up. He's saying he could be back week 1. Is he going to be playing week 1, or is he just going to be back on the team week 1? I keep hearing week 3. That's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing the same thing. There was some more speculation after the Giants charity softball game where you can see him noticeably still limping and not putting pressure on the leg. I spoke to someone who works for a news network, and I'm not going to say who because they're going to be right now they're our new best friends. But he works for a news network who told me that there could be a potential that Malik may not be back to week 8. It's not that the rehab is not progressing. It's just that the rehab is not progressing to the point that the Giants initially thought it would be. And the fact that the second surgery, which was just a cleanup, could still potentially push him out, which is one of the reasons the Giants, against their own conventional wisdom, went up and picked up Odell Beckham Jr. when no other team was interested in him. I don't know how clear that's going to be, but I'm going to say this. It's one of those things that these surgeries never heal to the way that you think they're going to. These surgeries you could do an Adrian Peterson and be back in 9 months or 8 months. You could do other players Saquon Barkley, who almost took truly a full 2 years to come back. Anytime you look at a skilled position where your ability to accelerate, deaccelerate, cut and have the ability to just take off, and you're relying on your leg and you have to fully trust the ligaments in your leg, that is something that takes a little bit longer at times to come back from. I'm not saying Malik is not sitting in the gym. I'm not saying Malik is not working hard. I'm not saying he's not hanging and banging. I'm not saying he's not doing the shit that he needs to do to get ready. What I am saying is this: I'm not going to sit there and be surprised if we come back in here. Let's put up another giant thing. If we come back, and I love it because you got the Adam West head right there, so it makes it even funnier. That we're not going to come back in here, that he could potentially be not maybe mid-season. Let's have some Black Rifle coffee. Black Rifle sent us a whole bunch of new cups, new mugs. Who knows? Who knows what's going on with Black Rifle? I'm not saying he's not coming back. I am saying this: I would not be surprised if the rehab is not going the direction the Giants want it to be headed. And not saying that it's not on track, but I'm just saying I've heard now rumors and speculations from week 3, and I've heard rumors and speculations to week 8 now. And a lot of times I hear these from people who are maybe not in the know in the Giants, but they're kind of in the know in the NFL circles. We're gonna have a Wednesday. We're doing a pre-record, and it's going to be an interesting one. So you're going to have a show on Thursday, but we're going to do a pre-record on Wednesday with Solomon Wilcox. Solomon Wilcox is also, you've seen him all over all different networks. He's got his own podcast. He covers the Cincinnati Bengals. So I want to make, we are confirmed, but I want to make sure that you guys get ready for that interview, because we're going to talk all about Dexter Lawrence. We're going to talk about everything that's going on with Dexter Lawrence right now in Cincinnati. I'm laughing because I got to talk to this motherfucker about some of these trades that the Giants and the Bengals makes, because I got to thank Solomon for Billy Price. I'm sorry, Billy Price Jr. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Show's probably going to be out on Thursday. Maybe a Bleav only exclusive podcast. I haven't decided yet. Let's see. Good morning, Tim. Did I miss anything? No, I've been just talking to Joe Ferris. Pellets expand and harden. It's a nightmare. It is. What did you smoke yesterday, Tim? We actually didn't barbecue yesterday because it was too fucking hot. So I actually made empanadas. I know the white guys make it. I cook, and everyone that knows me knows I cook Spanish food. And I cook Spanish food like I'm an abuela living in the campos. That's how I cook Spanish food. So we haven't made empanadas in a long time. So I got out the deep fryer and we made empanadas. Slayton would be Mario Manningham behind Cruz and Nick's third option. I wouldn't even say he's Mario Manningham. Let's see here. The question is, when Nabers does come back, how long do you think before him and Dart have the chemistry? That's a great question. You got to remember, they weren't playing for an extended period of time before the injury. They weren't playing. They didn't really get Malik Nabers hurt. People forget Malik Nabers hurt his back last year in training camp. And he really was not a factor in training camp or the preseason. I'm not, that didn't attribute to the injury, but you have a guy that's in year 2 that you hope is going to start 17 games, who is yet to play. Has yet to play with. That's what she said. His number 1 option for an extended period of time. So I'm not one of these guys that thinks that chemistry is like this. Maybe it's because I failed chemistry, but I'm not one of these guys that thinks chemistry is like, oh, if you don't have chemistry, you can't play together. But what I do think, it's not chemistry, it's timing. And I think that's the key people need to remember. It's not chemistry. You are going to be in an offense where, especially with Matt Nagy, that you could break off your route. So you might have 3 different route options as a wide receiver. And at that point in time, you and your quarterback have to have this symbiotic relationship. I don't know why I'm doing Mr. Fashion Hall right now. You have to have this symbiotic relationship where you know where the guy is going to break. And that is only going to come when you start working with each other in the offseason, playing, during the preseason, game day. It's not going to be chemistry. It's going to have to be, you're going to have to be familiar with each other's games. You're going to have to know which way Jaxson Dart likes to put the laces. You're going to have to know if he likes to put the ball on the inside or the outside of the wide receiver shoulder. You're going to have an understanding where Malik Nabers would like the ball to be. Does he like it high? Does he like it low? Does he like it more towards his hand? Does he like it more to the outside? On certain routes, which way does he like to break? So it's not going to be, it's like I said, it's not going to be that chemistry. It's going to be being familiar with the way each other plays. But Tim, you're a Gen X FanDuel rep. He is 22 years old, pro athlete. I think his healing powers may be better. I don't know. When I tore my ACL the second time, I was 22. I tore it just before my 21st birthday the first time, and I was 22 when I tore it the second time. I was in peak physical condition. And I love it because people who've seen me, because I've actually, I got to find them. I actually put some of the posts, some of the pictures up of me in uniform and stuff. I mean, I was a guy, but yeah. You spoke to Diane Rossini. You're trying to get me in trouble. WK says, do you think the Giants are not being truthful about Nabers to throw off Dallas with all this different reporting on it? Here's the thing. It's not that you're not being truthful. There's no injury report needed now. You're in the offseason. Well, technically, you're not in the offseason anymore. You're in season, but there's no injury report needed. There's no penalty for not divulging information right now. That is some of the smoothest Black Rifle coffee I've ever had. Boy, that gunship really makes you think in the morning. Does anyone got an idea what's happening here? Has anyone got an idea what happened here? I think I don't care how long it takes. Let Nabers take as much time as he needs. He's too young and too good. Mr. Perry, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Here's the only issue. You are going into year 3. Year 4 is right around the corner, and you have to figure out what you're going to do with that 5th-year option. So you need to get Malik healthy. You need to get him on the field, and you have to show not only the organization but the league that he is healthy. And we still got to get into Cam Skattebo, because I was speaking to Diane Rossini at the Taylor Swift wedding. When I got the information as I was hanging out there with Mike Vrabel. That's such a weird fucking story. We're never going to get into that. But it's year 3. You got to pick up the 5th-year option in May before year 4. I'm not saying you're not picking up the option, but you have to get this guy on the field, and you have to see that he's healthy. Joe Spano said, I heard so many conflicting reports about Bleav. I have no idea when he will see and will not see the Quill for 2006. One of the question marks this season is why the Giants are a 7-8 team. The Giants are a 7-8 team even with Malik. That win total is not going to change. If anything, it may go from 7-8 to 6-7. And I wish there was a place that I could go to find out what the Giants' odds were to go to the Super Bowl. Oh, I know where I can go. I can go to the mighty FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com, number 1 sportsbook in America. I'm going to go right now to the FanDuel's sportsbooks. I always have it up on my computer. Let's go to the NFL. Let's see if that line on the Giants had moved. Right now, you still have the Los Angeles Rams at plus 5,500, and you have the Bills at plus. The Bills are a plus 1,000 right now, which is crazy to me because they jumped the Seattle Seahawks, who are now plus 1,200. The Seattle Seahawks was plus 600 just the other day. The New York Giants were at plus 7,000. We're still at plus 7,000, just tied with the Steelers, just above the Carolina Panthers, and we're finally plus 8,000 as the Atlanta Falcons. So we're finally over the Atlanta Falcons. More than I thought we'd be. I'm still stunned, befuddled, and just perplexed that the Washington Commanders are at plus 5,000. I got to look at this and say the Giants are a better team than the Commanders. You know what I'm going to do right now? Hold on, guys. I'm going to place a wager. I'm going to do $125 on the New York Football Giants here on the mighty FanDuel. I'm going to take the plus 7,000 of the Giants being the winner. That's going to give me $8,750. Place your bet on the mighty FanDuel. Except all odd moment here. I just placed my bet so that is secured and that is ready to that is cock locked and ready to rock. I also want to take a look at the Giants right now at home are negative or 2 points underdog here on the Mighty FanDuel against the Dallas Cowboys. So that line just came out. We also have the preseason line. So if you want to bet on preseason football as well, we have the very first preseason game coming up, which is the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals. It's August 6th. It's amazing how fast these games come up. And you know what? On the Mighty FanDuel, you invite your friends to FanDuel. You both get bonus bets after they place a bet and the first bet settles. So make sure you go right now. Like I said, it's fucking crazy to me that the Giants are plus 7,000 and the Washington Commanders are plus 5,000. I'm taking that bet, and I've already placed that bet. It's going to be $8,750 here on the Mighty FanDuel. FanDuel.com. We love it. We want to get some more of it. And you know what you do? Bet $1, get $250 back in bonus bets if USA reaches the quarterfinals. Now I'm going to read that a bit. I'm going to read that again. You heard it right. So go to FanDuel. Go to the Mighty FanDuel. Base Giants bets. Go get your World Cup fight excitement shit and all that fun stuff. This is Tim. Mighty FanDuel. FanDuel.com. Number one sportsbook in America. Some of these young players like Nabers and Ricky Parcells have always got something wrong with them, it seems. Someone actually said to me, and it's one of those things, Joe Ferries, that someone mentioned to me that the skill position players seem to be having more difficulties with injuries now than 20 years ago. I have a good friend who is he's still a physician. He's on his way to retirement, and he does sports medicine. And he always tells me that one of the issues is the fact that you got guys that are bigger, stronger, faster, and sometimes their muscles and their build do not equal their body frames, and their frames cannot handle that type of wear and tear from these muscles. And he could explain a lot more fucking eloquently than I can. But he's just saying that, yeah, there could be something to that. What do we got here? The Giants could have so many good wide receivers, and could have so many good wide receivers in the draft. But you have to look at. I'm not one of these people that looks at the New York Giants and says their wide receiver core is shit. There's someone on ESPN that said that. A young lady said that, and I'm not going to say whom. I'm not going to talk about that because of the fact that she's a very nice person, I bet. So we're not going to say anything. I just wish her well. We wish you well. Well, we wish you well. I think you can understand there could be a potential reason why I'm not saying anything bad about anyone from ESPN, because I love ESPN. ESPN's the greatest show ever. But when you still have Darius Slayton, Calvin Austin, Malachi Fields, Darnell Mooney, Juju Schuster-Smith, and hell, even Odell Beckham at times, and tie him in with Isaiah, and even put in Mr. Braxton, you're okay. Because people seem to neglect this point. Isaiah Likely, while he is listed as a tight end, to me is more of an H-back. And Theo Johnson, if that fucking knucklehead can screw his head on right and figure shit out, is a good could be a really good tight end. So I'm not gonna. Yeah, Adrian Peterson is inhuman. Joe Spano says I'm more bullish on Cam being 100% opening day. I'm going to get to that in a second. Spies Masters, unfortunately, you can go to war with the army you have, not the army you wish you had. Good point. Let's talk about Cam Skattebo a moment. He's doing backflips. He's playing in the softball game. He took a couple carries in mandatory minicamp. There was this gaga-ness all over about Cam Skattebo. But I keep hearing things. I keep hearing little rumors. I keep hearing little speculations. And even Cam Skattebo came out back during the town hall that he still got some boxes to check before he could get into training camp. He still has some things that need to be solidified before he can even start thinking about participating in training camp. Now, I remember when he said this, and I didn't laugh because I kept telling people, I said, it doesn't sound like he's 100% ready. And I was thinking, because he literally said, I have some additional boxes to check because I have some things I have to do before I can really start participating in full football activities. That wasn't really Cam Skattebo. Cam Skattebo. I like football. I'm sorry, just joking. That was a joke. But he even said it. And I was chatting with somebody the other day. I was chatting with someone just before the just before the start of the holiday, which was technically on Friday in our house. And I laughed because he was talking to like Cam Skattebo wasn't going to be ready for training camp. And this is someone that's got some knowledge of the NFL. And he's like, well, what do you think about Cam not being ready for camp? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I didn't fucking hear this. What, just because you're in the know, just because you're an important person, just because you know me, don't hit those like button, guys. Come on, let's get the likes up today. We didn't get the likes up. And I said, where did you hear that he's not going to be ready? And it's not saying that he's not going to be ready for training camp completely. It's not saying he's going to miss the entire preseason. It was just that he was hearing that you have to remember the injury that Cam Skattebo had is an injury with a protruding bone. Now, we have seen players who've had bones come out of their skin not be effective the second year back. It was a dislocation and a protrusion of the bone, which is why he had to have emergency surgery. And I thought, and he goes, and I was like, well, and I knew where he was going. He was like, Paulson Adebo. Paulson Adebo is another great example of a guy with a clean break with a bone protrusion that never came back to fully be what he was before the injury. And the Giants are still hoping that he's going to reach that pinnacle of success that he had in New Orleans. But this type of injury can take 2 years to come back from, if even at all. And there have been players that have had this similar type injury who have never recovered in their NFL career. And then he was like, you got to remember, this is a guy that has to trust his lower body and his shoulders to be effective. His complete effectiveness, Cam Skattebo, is not going to be to juke. It is not going to be to outrun anyone, because this is a guy that only had 4.1 yards per carry, only had one single carry of over 20 yards, which was that 24-yard gain. His yards after contact, he wasn't sitting there. He was tied for 27th in the league in yards after contact in reference to starting running backs. And he didn't qualify, but like I said, he is a guy that if you take a look at his style, when you are Ram Man from He-Man, you need to fully trust the lower part of your body, and everything that starts with that is your feet and your ankles. So if he is not 100% ready to be that battering ram, this is a guy that doesn't get by on quickness. This is a guy that does not get by on agility. This is a guy that does not get by on speed. But it's a guy that may not be ready for week one, what I'm hearing. And what I heard. Now, listen, I will tell you this. I only heard this from one person. I've only heard this from one source. So I'm not going to sit there and tell you the validity of this. I've heard this from one person. And I heard it just on Thursday, and I went out of town for a couple days, and we came back on Saturday. We came back late Saturday. So I really didn't talk to anyone else. But this one person is telling me that there is a potential that he could not be back week one. That he could be a guy that comes back around week 2 or 3. And like I said, I'm not going to sit there and give you, I'm not going to sit there and say, warning, Will Robinson, warning. I'm not going to sound the alarm bells on this. But I still think if people are so concerned about the depth in regards to the Giants wide receiver core, I said this on the last stream. You are a Cam ankle and a Tyrone Tracy shoulder away from right now seeing Eric Gray and Dante Miller as your starting running backs. If that doesn't scare the bejesus out of you, you are a braver person than I. Because that scares the bejesus out of me. Let's see here. Davey says, I want the background from your Knicks parade, the one that James. That's not James in the background. That was actually sent to me by James. But that's not James in the background from the Knicks parade. That's just some guy that's scared. That's just some guy that makes me really nervous because all he does is stare at me, man. See there he is, man. He does fucking look at me, man. Stop looking at me, man. WK says, I'm only nervous about Malik because the way he catches the ball, jumps, spin in the air, usually. That's because that's referred to as poor ball placement. You shouldn't have to do that as an NFL wide receiver. But I'm more concerned the fact that you have a guy that had probably more of a significant knee injury than the Giants were letting on. And it's a guy that relies on speed, quickness, and agility. And then you have a running back who was not fleet of foot, who only had one carry over 20 yards last year, only had 4.1 yards per carry. And he relies on his strength of his lower body, starting from his feet to his ankles, and he dislocated an ankle. And now I'm kind of hearing that he may not be ready. He may not be ready week 1. That's what really worries me. Joe Ferry's best interview was the offensive line. That's Jerry Oslowski. I love Jerry. I love Big Jerry. I want to have Big Jerry back on, but and I've talked to Jerry about coming back on, but he's a Buffalo guy. I mean, we had him on because we were doing an Evan Neal video, and we had him on because we were playing the Bills that preseason. So I haven't, I got to what's called, Jerry's willing to come back on, and Jerry Oslowski was a fantastic guest, 10-year NFL veteran, played with Jim Kelly and Frank Reich, came in just after the season after the last Super Bowl. So he didn't have the pinnacle of success. It's funny. Another great interview that I don't really talk about a lot, and I love this guy, is Joe Valario. Is jumping Joe Valario from the Kansas City Chiefs. He got to play with Joe Montana. He's on the cover of NFL 94. That's let's see. That's him in the background behind Joe Montana. That's jumping Joe Valario. I love Joe Valario. Joe's just a great guy. He is just a great guy in general, but again, he's I don't know. Maybe I will call Joe up and have him on because he was a great guest. Let's see. Mr. Perry says, "Man, I haven't heard Dex's name in months. I haven't heard Dex's name in months either, and that's why I reached out and I was like, well, let's get Solomon Wilcox on. Let's get him on. Let's talk about the trade. Let's talk about what Dex is doing now. Let's talk about Dex's weight. Let's talk about his fit in Cincinnati. Let's get the 411. Let's get the details and what's better than to talk to the guy that's been in the NFL for 6 years, been on the NFL Network, been on ESPN, been on all over the place, and covers the Bengals. Let's see here. Is Scat ready, or is he just believing himself? I keep hearing week 1 not an option yet. Now listen, all that can change. All that can go a totally different direction. You sometimes with rehabs, you hear something when they're not in camp, and then they get into camp, and it's totally different. So I'm not saying there isn't an option for him to be back. I'm not saying there isn't an option for both of them to start against Dallas. I'm just saying that it's what you call it. It's just a little crazy. Lately, you have been having the Austin Powers video game guy on not as good. That's Dom, man. First of all, that's Dominic Palmer. Dominic Palmer is like one of my best friends. So you can never You can never knock the Dahmer. And Dahmer, I'm trying to get Dahmer to. We're trying to see if he when he's coming back to the Americas. I was hoping that he was going to come for the World Cup because I wanted him to. I want to, because Dom, when he comes, he hangs out with me. He hangs out at my house. So yeah, Dom is welcome to come on anytime he wants. And if anyone ever says a bad thing about Dom, I will then have Dom on every single show. That's how much I love Dom. Now, Dom, if you're listening, don't let that go to your head because I still think I'm still going to make fun of you. Sometimes I say nice things about Dom, then I have to call him an asshole just because he gets a swelled head. Looks like Fields will get a chance to prove what he can do. See, that's the thing, though. And that's the thing that I like. I should rephrase that. I don't like this. But if you are going to have an option where your wide receiver 1 is out for 3 weeks, out till week, and I'm still hearing week 3. I am still hearing week 3. You give an option to younger guys. And that's when people are like, well, we have to play OBJ. No, OBJ right now is sitting 7th on the Giants' unofficial depth chart. I want to give snaps to Malachi Fields. I want to give snaps to Calvin Austin. I want to give snaps to guys that I want, if they can be a part of this team and their success, not just 26 and 27, 28, 29, and 30 down the road. I want to give more targets then to Isaiah Likely because you brought Isaiah Likely in here to be a difference maker. You brought Isaiah Likely in here to be a top flight skilled level guy that is going to be used in multitudes of ways and going to line up everywhere I've already said this before. My dream scenario when Malik Nabers comes back healthy, and I keep thinking about this. This was my dream scenario. I'm going to have Malik Nabers, Malachi Fields, and Darnell Mooney on the outside and the three wide receiver spot. I'm going to put Isaiah Likely in the backfield and then move somebody like maybe Odell, maybe Calvin Austin, whomever in the slot. And then I'm going to have Theo Johnson. And I've already said this before, it's going to be.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
I'm going to create a Thunderdome. I'm going to flood so many skill guys out in the field that you're not going to know who to fucking cover, and I'm going to put Likely in the backfield. So I'm going to sit there. I'm going to have Malik Nabers, Malachi Fields, and Calvin Austin in the slot. I'm going to have Theo Johnson at tight end. I'm going to have Isaiah Likely coming out of the backfield. Who the fuck do you cover? Let's get the young guys. Empanadas on the 4th of July. That's so liberal shit, Tim. Boo. Actually, that's anti-liberal shit. Because, first of all, liberals don't even know how to spell empanadas. I love empanadas. If Fields broke out, it would be a really pleasant surprise, wouldn't it be? Listen, I'm not telling you Malachi Fields is not going to have his struggles early. I think what's going to happen is he's going to have to figure out the game. Because like EA Sports says, it's in the game. He's going to have to figure out the game because he is stepping up to a different level. And we've talked about this a million times before. And anyone that has played in college or high school and went to college and goes to pros, and I never went to pros, so I don't know this, but everyone understands when you first jump a level that there is a learning curve for not every player, but there is a learning curve because the game is faster. And you doubt yourself for a couple minutes because you're like, well, shit, I can't run with these guys. I can't do this. And then it could be any point in time. It could be in a preseason game. Fuck, it could be in practice where everything just kind of slows down. You start figuring shit out. You keep seeing you are taking, for all of training camp, let's say, you just can't figure it out. You are basically trying to.
I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole rapidly.
You're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Not working. Nothing's working for you. Then something just clicks. I think Malachi Fields is going to have his struggles early in camp, and I would rather have him. And this is one good thing. There's no good thing about your star player being injured, but if you want to have a silver lining about something, you're going to give reps to other guys. Hell, Bo Collins is still on this fucking thing. Bo Collins was the Victor Cruz of preseason last year. Had that 97-yard catch or whatever it was. Didn't really do anything during the season, but he was the Victor Cruz last year. You're going to give Bo Collins some snaps. You're going to give guys some snaps. And I think Malachi Fields getting as many snaps as humanly possible in training camp is going to help him propel and help him succeed going into week 1 against Dallas. What we got here? Throwing the ball to a spot where your wide receiver should be tricky. You want to know why? You want to know why it's tricky? Because it's tricky to Rocky Rhyme that right on time. It's tricky. It's tricky, huh? There's this girl named Carol. She followed Daryl every gig we played. Sorry. I was actually listening to Run DMC before I came downstairs. When I was outside, I had Run DMC on when I was whacking the weeds outside, which is funny because my neighbor, unless he has his binoculars, is probably looking at me like I'm nuts. Because at one point I'm sitting there screaming, "Small fries, Big Mac, you be illin'." Yeah. Living next to me is a joy. Thank God I don't have any neighbors that close. Let's see here. Pictures were carved in the side of a cave. You replace ZipRecruiter with Black Rifle Coffee? Those checks cashing? I don't know. I don't know what's going to go on with the smooth taste of Black Rifle Coffee. Sometimes there's just days that you wake up in the campsite and you wonder to yourself, what is that aromatic flavor? It could be Black Rifle Coffee. You guys are going to get sick of sponsors next in August. Actually in July too. You guys are going to be like, you guys are going to be like, what the fuck? But listen, I love doing the reads. And the good news is a lot of sponsors that are coming on for the season are going to be on the podcast. They're going to be inserts in the podcast. I'm going to do the reads and they're just going to program them in, which is awesome. So, and like I said, we love, there's a lot of great people that have requested to be part of the show starting in July and to the end of July and August. And we, some people we say no to because of the fact that I don't think they're a fit to the show. But everyone that we have coming on, I really think is like FanDuel. I don't just love FanDuel because they're a sponsor. I love FanDuel because FanDuel is fucking awesome. I was using FanDuel before FanDuel even became part of the show. Same with Mint Mobile. But there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to come on sponsor wise, and I'm very excited about it. That really fit the dynamic of the show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Skyline says, "Hey everyone, happy Independence Day weekend! Can Mooney and Schuster pick up the slack?" Listen, I think people are sleeping on Darnell Mooney. I really do. And I told you I loved this signing from jump. This is a guy that if you take a look at what he had to work with, first of all, this guy's only 28 years old. But this is a guy that look what he had to work with in Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta, I thought at one point in time, Atlanta might have called me up to play quarterback. And even in a bad Kirk Cousins down season in 24, he still had 992 yards and 5 touchdowns and was targeted 106 times. He had his best season in Chicago that playoff year under Matt Nagy, where he got 140 targets and he had over 1,000 yards. This is a guy that's averaged 13 yards a reception for his entire career. This is a guy that has almost a 7-yard yak. He had a bad year receiving last year because I think he had some quarterback issues, but he's got a catch percentage of 60.4 for his career. And he had a really bad season in 23 in Chicago, but Chicago in 23 didn't even have a quarterback. I think Chicago in 23 was like, hey, listen, we're not going to play with the quarterback this year. This is a guy that I think a lot of Giant fans are sleeping on. And I don't think you should. I think, again, it's another guy, if you get some slack, you give him some slack, he's going to show you something. Tim, Black Rebels Coffee's largest shareholder. We'll soon appoint him CEO. Hell, you never know. 100%. I think that is Giant fan for life. The Bills' new stadium is amazing. I didn't know I didn't have to take a look at the new stadium. Davey says if the Giants go to Super Bowl next year, I'm going to buy Harbaugh a new smoker. Joe Ferry, CEO, as soon as he can clear in regards to the disappearance of his neighbor and McLovin. McLovin's still around, I think. My neighbor, I don't have to see my neighbor, so I'm fine. That's the best part. I don't have to see neighbors. Going back to South Beach in a week because we're looking at some more property. And I love it though because I told Mrs. Online Big Blue, I gotta come back for the last week in July because I'm going to the first 3 days of training camp, so I have to be back. I'm going to be recording from the first week in training camp, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to have some interviews. We're going to have some fun stuff going on. We got a lot of people coming out, so I'm very excited to meet a lot of people. But I already told her, I said, we find a place, I'm buying it. And I told my real estate agent, I said, listen, you find me a place on the water. You find me, like I said, love Adventura. We saw online, we saw a penthouse at I think it was Mystic Island, which is phenomenal. And I told the guy, I said, listen, I may just buy it right there. I said, if I like it, I might just buy it there. So I told my wife, send my mail because I'm not coming home. Because I love Miami. Let's see here. Didn't they red card the best U.S. team player? I got no fucking clue. It's soccer. Who the fuck cares? Joe Spano says, you may be right. Joe Ferries don't want a scandal-ridden CEO. I have Tim Scandals never. You know what? You think there's a scandal, you just disappear. It's interesting how people who crossed him end up missing. Strange coincidence. It's never strange. Joe Ferry says the story about ESPN draft scouts Matt Miller losing his arm last week and now going to expose for scamming people is nuts. I didn't even hear about that. Smiley Smasher. Let's see here. Some Bill Parcells shit going on right there. What do we also got here? Let's see here. Let's see. I met Will Cox in Albany in 2006. Very nice guy. I would love to see your Phil Simms interview. You know what? There is something interesting to talk about with that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Solomon Wilcox, been in the media game forever, dude. Legend. I am very, like I said, I can't wait to do the Solomon Wilcox interview. I can't wait because I got so many fucking Dexter Lawrence questions. That hopefully I'm going to have it done. We have it scheduled for Wednesday morning, which means that'll give me a day to splice it, slice it, re-level the audios and put it into a podcast format. And then we'll have the video as well. And we'll then post, I think, Thursday morning as a podcast first. So we have to kind of wait and see. We only got to kind of wait and see where we kind of go there. Let's see here. AI viewers stream Skattebo. Well, I don't know what the fuck that meant. Who protects Dart if you flood? You have an offensive line. This is what I want people to understand about the New York Football Giants offensive line. You are returning 4 out of 5 starters. That is referred to as hitting the like button. That is referred to as continuity. Your offensive line is not proficient at blocking for the run. They're not. Your best run blockers right now are Andrew Thomas and probably Francis. You have an undersized, undermanned center, who I don't think is going to be here next year. You have Andrew Thomas. John Runyon is not a proficient run blocker. You go back and talk to anyone that knows him from Green Bay. When we had Amon Green on, We talked a little about John Runyon. He said the same thing. John Runyon, great guy, but he's not his dad. But he is a proficient pass blocker. Jermaine Illuminor is not known to being this stout run guy, being this road paver, but he is extremely proficient at basically being a run blocker. That's what he is. He's a good run blocker at right tackle. Big Francis should find it easier to be a run blocker in the league because it's always easier to be a run blocker first and a pass blocker second, especially when you're a rookie. But you're returning 4 out of 5 of your starters, and you actually had a fairly productive season as pass blockers for a rookie quarterback. They gave him a good amount of time. They gave him clean pockets. Jaxson Dart is just going to have to learn to work on a 3-step drop, make quick decisions, and work the offense that way. That's the way. That's why Matt Nagy, and I keep telling people this over and over again, and people, I just want you to understand this. The Matt Nagy system, if you are running the Chicago system and even the Kansas City system, is perfect for Jaxson Dart. It's almost like John, and a lot of people are still complaining about Matt Nagy, but it's almost like John Harbaugh went out and said, listen, I have a quarterback who we perceive has talent, because I don't know yet. Keep saying this over and over again. They did a disservice to Jaxson Dart last year. They ran a college-style offense, and listen, I understand 100% when you ask your quarterback, what plays are you comfortable running? And you install those plays in the playbook, but then you also sprinkle in, I don't know, like NFL plays. You ran the Lane Kiffin offense at times. And then when Daboll left and Kafka took over, they tried to implement some NFL type style offenses, and it didn't work. So they didn't build an NFL quarterback. They had a college quarterback playing in the NFL that they were trying to win games with to save their jobs. So I cannot give you a full. People are like, well, you like Jaxson Dart now. I'm like, no, I can't give you a full assessment on this guy till I literally see him in an NFL offense. Now, if I had to pick and choose an offense that was perfect for Jaxson Dart, it's the Matt Nagy offense. If you literally went out and said, let's build an offense around a guy that's a running quarterback, is more proficient in the short yardage situation. When I'm not talking short yardage is like 2 yards, I'm talking a short yardage zone where it's 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and 10 yards out, who is extremely proficient in that area. And you need to create a system where it's going to be quick timing. He's going to have to make fast reads, but you can take advantage of his scrambling ability and run the ball, have design runs, kind of an a la Jalen Hurts, and then have the ability to hopefully take this horizontal offense and then fucking go vertical. We've talked about it. We've done this diagram over and over again. Touchdown. That's what it's going to be. That's going to be my Jaxson Dart touchdown dance. Touchdown. That's going to be my Jaxson Dart touchdown dance, because you are going to take this horizontal offense and you are going to take him vertical and take advantage of the assets that he has and what he offers you. We've shown these charts a million times before. Look behind the line of scrimmage and 10 yards. A lot of green. It's when you go over that 10 yard that you see a problem. You see a lot of white. Whites are incompletions. It's the same thing. You look at negative. Look where this was early in the season. Look where the offense ran. Look where they made their bread and butter. Look where they made their money. Behind the line of scrimmage and 10 yards. You start going over 10 yards, it's a crapshoot. Again, this was, I believe, the Raiders game when we threw the ball more. You take a look at behind the line of scrimmage, and you take a look at what happens when you go over 10. The red's an interception. You see a lot of white. It's the same thing again. You played with. He's already played in this arena again. Look at all the passes. This is like the greatest. This is like the shot chart in the NFL. The NBA. All those green between the behind the line of scrimmage, which is the blue line, and 10, a lot of green. You start going over 10, that's when you have a problem. We've talked about this before. You need to work on Jaxson Dart's footwork because his footwork is going to lead to his accuracy, which is going to show improvement on the deep ball. And we're going to show his ability to take the Giants deep. We've gone through the video. We've gone through the video 100 times. Oops. Sorry, I hit the wrong button again. I was trying to get to the video. I don't know if I still have the video here, but we've gone through the Jaxson Dart passing video, which concerns me. And we've shown this video a million times before. We're going to go back. Watch Jaxson Dart's front foot. We're going to go through the play again. You watch his front foot. See how now, okay, see, you look at number 12. Look where his foot is pointed. Okay, and look how it's done. Now look at Jaxson Dart's foot on the deep throw. He is literally almost diagonal to the left. That's not good, kiddies. And we've talked about this. We've shown this footage a million times. He's going to have to work on his footwork, which is why it is such a disservice what Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka did to this kid. If you want to take a look at why his long ball accuracy over 10 is so god-awful, it's because of his footwork. It's also his arm angles, but I'm never going to change a quarterback's arm angles. I'm never going to change a quarterback's throwing motion. I'm never going to get into that. You're a quarterback. You've been throwing that way since fucking Papa Warner. And it's a muscle memory thing. It's a muscle memory thing at this point in time that you just need. I'm never going to touch it, but you can work on his footwork. Davey says, breaking news, Tim's assigned his letter of intent to play with Furman. It's the mighty Furman. Hardy has Cam contacts, balance size, and is much more explosive. It's Testins being the Bears out. Watch out. Ball's great side. Speeds package. Need to develop. Fletcher's a big banger. I guess we're talking about people in the draft. What does he also said? NIL deal pays less than the mighty FanDuel, dude. FanDuel.com. Number one sportsbook in America. Joe Ferry says Field should look good in camp versus our corners. I don't want to say that because I said this last year in camp. The Giants running backs were tearing through the Giant defense during camp. I mean, Cam Skattebo looked like John Riggins. Tyrone Tracy was Bo Jackson. Eric Gray was still Eric Gray, but they were ripping through the Giants defense. And I was on video. I don't know where the video is because it was last year. I was on video saying that I don't know if the Giants running backs are this good or if our defense is still this porous. And then I spoke about it on the stream the next day that I looked at it, I said, I don't think our running backs are this good. I think our defense is just this bad. And it turned out to be right. So I'm kind of hoping. I'm all set to come on and insult people. Who are we insulting now? What is going on here? Tim needs a men's hairstyling product sponsor. No, we don't need a hairstyle. We don't need it. But Spice Master says OBB brought to you by Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. Fuck you, I'm eating. That FanDuel cash speaks loudly. Of course. Yeah, I always like to have sponsors that don't pay. Of course you want sponsors that get it. Yeah, and that's the thing about sponsors. Sponsors pay you what they believe in you, how much they believe in you, and how much they believe you're going to help their corporation. So that's, yeah. So you know what? It's the mighty FanDuel, FanDuel.com, number one sportsbook in America. Charlie Collins, what's up, brother? Jaxson Dart will be a top 7 quarterback this year. Don't see it. I've already said it, Charlie. I see Jaxson Dart as a middle of the pack guy. If you want to put him in at 15, I'm good with that. You got a guy that has footwork issues. You got a guy that did not truly read NFL defenses last year at times. You got a guy that's going to be in a brand new offense, even though it's built exactly for him. I've said it before. If he comes up with 3,700 yards and 24 touchdowns passing, and then like another 600 yards rushing, another, 6 or 7 touchdowns. So if he has a total of over 4,000 yards and 31 touchdowns combined, that's not a top 7 quarterback. That's a top 15 quarterback. And I would take that, because if you can do that and you can muster that up, you potentially could still win your 7 to 9 games. But I can't sit there and tell you this kid's all world yet, because like I said, Brian Daboll did this kid no fucking favors. I am so glad Brian Daboll is off and doing whatever he's going to do to Cam Ward, because when your pinnacle of success is Josh Allen, and I don't want to talk about the quarterbacks he cultivated and molded in college, but when your pinnacle of success is Josh Allen and you've done nothing in the pros without Josh Allen, I don't know. There could be a witch cut there. There could be a little bit of thing going on there. Skyline said, for the perspective for young fans, John Runyon Sr. would go toe to toe against Strahan as a member of the Eagles. John Runyon Sr. was not a household name until Michael Strahan, until all the shit that went on with Michael Strahan. I think he was a congressman in New Jersey. But John Runyon was a guy. John Runyon Jr. was he played in the league when he came over from Tennessee. And I can't remember. I think he came over to Philadelphia in the early 2000s. I don't remember. But he was a solid guy. He averaged like 16 games a year for like 9 years in Philadelphia. Good player, solid player. But it was the battles with Strahan, and it was the nastiness and everything else that went on that really caused John Runyon Sr. to be a household name more in New York, because he was a household name in Philadelphia, because like I said, he played in like 9 years in Philly, started 16 games like every year, I think, except I think for his last year. But his son is not the junior is not the senior. Two totally different players. John Runyon Sr. was a knock your dick in the dirt, nasty fucking player. John Runyon Jr. is more of a finesse guy, not athletic. But listen, you have to have some type of athleticism to be in the NFL. But when you're talking as a starting guard caliber, you have to remember John Runyon Jr., his last year in Green Bay, the last 7 weeks, was rotating with a rookie. And he even rotated into the playoffs with a rookie. And they let him go because we had someone on the show that said that if he wanted more than $6 million, Green Bay was not signing him. And then they drafted a guy that year in the 3rd round who is now a Pro Bowler. So, but yes, that is good. That is good perspective. Spice Basher says, Tim, sponsored by Aquanet Hairspray, holding without penalties. Oh, I like that. Let's see. Like the short game, burn the clock, put speed on the opposing linebackers. You're right. And we showed just all those charts. And people ask me, he had such a high completion percentage. But you take a look at the chart for Jaxson Dart. Take a look at the chart. Yeah, he only completed 63% of his passes. So really, in NFL standards, a good quarterback, which is crazy in this league, completes like 67, 68% of his passes. You gotta remember that. He only had a 41% first down success rate. Everyone tells me about Jaxson Dart's deep ball. He had one of the deep balls in the NFL. Does anyone want to take a guess what Jaxson Dart's longest pass completion was in 339 throws? Does anyone want to take a guess? His longest pass completion was 44 yards. This guy threw the ball 339 times, and his deepest pass completion was 44 yards. And he was still sacked 35 times in 12 starts. The only good news is he only gave up 152 yards a sack. His sack percentage, so the amount of times that he was sacked on a play was almost 10% of the time. And a lot of those plays weren't because of the fact that the offensive line was porous. It was because he was scrambling and not following the actual play, which is on the head coach, which is why I'm sitting here. I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming the kid who played in 80, even though he only started 12 games, he still played in 83% of the time. One of the things that I like about Jaxson Dart's ball, because of the short passing game, is on-target percentage for the season. His on-target percentage, which is a percentage of on-target throws, which you take away the spikes and you take away the throwaways, was 72.9%. That means if you take a look at the way he was playing within that 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage and 10 yards at 13 yards, his on-target percentage was almost 73%. That's good. This is also a guy that was only pressured on 20% of his snaps. Because we talk about the offensive line. People are like, well, the offensive line was so terrible. He was only pressured on 21.3% of his snaps. So there are so many good things that you can discuss about Jaxson Dart that he did in reference to the short passing game. That's why the Matt Nagy system is such a simpatico relationship. We showed the charts. When your top pass is only 44 yards out of 319 attempts, that's showing me you're not able to go deep. But like I said, I don't blame the kid for that. I don't. Look. I even wore it. Someone sent me this. I'm going to wear it in camp. Look at that. Somebody sent me this. Thank you. I'm going to wear it during camp because I'm not going to sit there and people are like, well, you bashed Daniel Jones. I bashed Daniel Jones because I didn't think Daniel Jones was a good quarterback. And people are like, well, you've changed your opinion on Jaxson Dart. No, I haven't changed my opinion on Jaxson Dart at all. I don't know. I see a guy that if I look at it statistically played on a short field. If you went over that 10 yards, we just showed 6 games, all the greens between -3 and 10, and then all the white dots over 10, that's concerning. And then we just showed the video on his footwork. I think it was Joe Spano that told me the other day that one of the things, no, I don't know if it was Joe Spano. I can't remember who it was. They were talking about a throw to, I think it was Big Don out of Texas too. They were talking about a throw during camp to Odell Beckham. And the throw, I love it because the guy was like, it took like 48 minutes. It was such a high lollipop throw. It took like 48 minutes to get there. And I was like, yes, because he needs to figure out his velocity. He needs to figure out, and figuring out Jaxson Dart's footwork is going to help with his velocity, is going to help with his accuracy. It's going to help on so many things. Is he going to become Steve Young? Is he going to become a young Patrick Mahomes? Is he going to become a young Tom Brady? No. Even an old Tom Brady? No. He's going to be the next Jaxson Dart. But the problem is this. I can't fault the kid for being fucked up by the previous regime because they were trying to save their jobs by playing a rookie quarterback who, in their own opinion, should sit out an entire year. In their own, Brian Daboll's own assessment, you should sit Jaxson Dart out for an entire year because that will benefit him. Now, I didn't agree with that. I felt you should have played him the last 6-7 weeks of the season because you got to get him some game reps. But you went from one direction to another direction. You went from Backstreet Boys to NSYNC, get it One Direction. You went from that way, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, and then I love it because then you have this you have this overconfidence on some Giant fans about Jaxson Dart, but you're not looking at the nitty-gritty. You're not looking at the fact that you did not cultivate an NFL quarterback, because these two morose motherfuckers were sitting there, and Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka trying to save their jobs and create a name for themselves in the NFL, and Mike Kafka, but not building an NFL quarterback to win in the future for the motherfucking New York Giants. They thought it was the Daboll Kafka New York team. So thank God for John Harbaugh. Thank God for Matt Nagy. Thank God for Callahan. Thank God for Darnell Wilson. Thank God for this guy who's scaring the shit out of me on this side. And thank God for the New York Knicks. Because now I got a guy in there that's going to work with it and develop it. John Harbaugh developed Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. Two totally different quarterbacks on the spectrum. Look, they don't even fit on the spectrum. And cultivated them both into winners, a Super Bowl winner and a multiple MVP winner. So he understands the thought process of developing a quarterback. And that's what we got to look at. That's what we got to be excited about. That's what Giant fans need to be happy about. When playing the Giants, do you think opponents will attack the defensive line or secondary? Oh, no. Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. Week 1, Dallas. Week 1, I mean, the Dallas game, the Pearl Harbor game in Dallas with Russell Wilson and everyone else was an anomaly, because Dallas was running the ball, and then at one point in time it was like, shit, let's try passing the ball, and then it was just lights out. I'm an NFL team, and I have a above average running game. The first thing I'm doing the first 3 weeks of the season, I am attacking the Giants defensive line. Last year, the Giants had the most cap space allocated from any team in the NFL on the defensive line. They spent the most money in the entire NFL on the defensive line, and we had the worst defensive line. And I kept saying this, even going back to the playoffs with Wink, we were still giving up like 4.5, 4.7 yards a carry. We have been so porous against the run that until we have proved that we can stop the run, if I'm an any NFL franchise, I'm running up the gut. Off tackle left, off tackle right. I am going to dare the Giants to stop the run. And what happens when you dare a team to stop the run? What do? They creep. They put a safety in the box, which will then give you one-on-one coverage somewhere on that field if you're not running a zone. But if you're going to bring up some extra, if you were going to put 7 guys in the box, you're probably one-on-one somewhere. And that's when teams are going to take a shot. And people, again, are like, well, we're going to be so destructive with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter, and we're going to throw in Reese. How destructive were we last year with those guys? And you are subtracting Dexter Lawrence. Now, I don't think I have not been a fan of Dexter Lawrence in 2 seasons. But you're still subtracting what certain people call the best defensive tackle in the league. And like I said, we're going to talk to Solomon Wilcox on that on Wednesday. So that interview will be up on Thursday. But you still attack the interior of the line. Now, the good news is between Tremaine Edmonds and Reese, you should have better linebackers in the middle of the field than you ever had. Now, I am scared. I am slightly frightened that you are planning to put Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau if you're running a 3-4 as your 2 outside linebackers. I got to take a deep breath when I hear that. Abdul Carter, 25.9% missed tackle percentage his last year in college as an off-the-ball linebacker. 25.9. He's not known for making tackles in space. He's not known for making tackles in the middle of the field. He's known for rushing the passer. Teams last year ran right at him. People are going to say, well, he improved the last 3 weeks of the season. You played garbage teams in the last three. You closed out the season with the Raiders and the Cowboys, who played nobody. I watched teams shot put Abdul Carter. I watched him in the Philly game. I think it was Lane Johnson. I want to say it was Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson was coming here. Abdul Carter had a 7-yard start. It's like the fucking coyote hitting the wall and sliding off. You need to use these players. And I hope Darnard Wilson, and I have a lot of hope in Darnard Wilson, that he is going to use these guys positionally in the right places. We showed video of Abdul Carter working as a linebacker in mandatory minicamp. I posted it. And Kayvon Thibodeau was not stout against the run. Kayvon Thibodeau, and we joke over and over again sometimes that, he could, sometimes Kayvon Thibodeau could be blocked by a quarterback. No, that would never happen. Swift ripped off like 45 yards that play. You have to use the guys what they should be used for. Rushing the passer. And like I said, to me, pairing, and I keep saying this about Reese, and I got to get a Reese jersey before camp. This is what I keep saying about Reese. People say he's a hybrid, and I always hated that. But I do agree he is a hybrid in my mind. He is a hybrid in the fact that I think Reese can play on the inside and the outside linebacker position. I think he's going to be more effective immediately in Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles' biggest step over Reese, and this is only in one area, is his pass coverage ability because of the fact that Sonny Styles used to be a safety. He's only been playing linebacker for 2 years. The football gods smiled on the New York Giants
and said, "You shall have a linebacker."
And finally gave us a fucking linebacker, an athletic, destructive linebacker in Reese. And then the Bears, and I love Giant. I learned certain content creators. Well, we need to trade for Edmonds. I kept telling you people, let him. He's gonna get fucking released. Don't give up assets and pay a contract that you can't afford when the guy's not going to be here. But you now finally have two stout linebackers in the middle. You just are missing guys on the outside. Teams should just run the ball in this every play until that's what they're going to do. Like in the Denver game, you're right. Is Darts Mahomes with a noodle? No, I don't think so. The pass to Bellinger was probably that 40-yard throw. You're right, it was. What's up, Big Dash? Big Dash in his house. I would invite you to come on, Big Dash. But every time I put the link in the chat and tell you to come on, well, sometimes you do it. I was gonna shut my big mouth. Big Dash rewatching all 26 Giant games, 2003 Giant games. Hope not. Joe Spana says, being the case, Dart's longest pass completion of the season traveled less than 10 yards in the air. I keep talking to people over and over about this again. Everyone kept telling me about Jaxson Dart's deep ball proficiency. And I kept saying, I don't see it. So that's when we started. And I always hate this. When we start pulling up the charts, we went to game charts. You see all the greens behind this line of scrimmage and 10. Everything else, you're getting into the little white dots. Little white dots are bad. Those are incompletions. You take a look, -10, -2 to 10 yards, deadly, 70%. The game where you threw the ball the most. Again, you go over that 10-yard, it gets kludgy at best. Again, you look at this and go, oh my God, look at all those greens. But then I go over here and I only see 2 greens after 10. And like I said, we've shown the video. It's the footwork. In my opinion, Big Dash is on his way back from church. My wife said church, so she's praying for both of us. Well, Big Dash, when you get back from church, let me know. But this is the thing with the Giants, and this just is what gets you. The reason why they went Matt Nagy was because of the fact that, like I said, Matt Nagy made Mitchell Trubisky at least for 2 seasons, looked serviceable. Looked great in 2021, but he made him look serviceable. Why? Quick decisions, short passing games. Keep it horizontal. When it's time, you switch vertical. 94 George Seifert, which was then used by the Walrus, not only at times in Philadelphia, Andy Reid, of course, but also over in Kansas City, which has then been used by Matt Nagy, which has then been, now listen, it was run by perfection in 94 by Seifert. And then it was run in perfection for a couple of years with Patrick Mahomes. But I don't know if Jaxson Dart's Patrick Mahomes, but then even Matt Nagy made it look ultra proficient with Mitchell Trubisky. And we all have to agree. We think Jaxson Dart is better than Mitchell Trubisky. Big Dash says, holla, holla, may start over Runyon. The Giants save $8 million. Listen, if I've talked to so many people in Baltimore about that guy. He is just a favorite of John Harbaugh. There's these people that were there are favorite players that may not be good, but they're just good guys, and they're just people you like having around. If Danny Fala replaces John Runyon, we go from fucked to we be fucked, because they both are terrible. But at least John Runyon is proficient in the giant blocking scheme that is returning 4 out of 5 starters. So continuity alone in my mind, gives John Runyon the job. Joe Ferry says, it wasn't me, but I know the throw. Oh no, it was Big Don out of Texas. But by what you said about the goofballs, I trust your assessment on talent. But Dart does have talent. But does Dart have talent? Yes. Does Jaxson Dart have talent to be an NFL quarterback? Yes. Wait. Brandon Allen has talent to be an NFL quarterback. There is different levels of talent. Jameis Winston had talent to be an NFL quarterback, was the first overall pick. His last starting season in Tampa threw 35 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. I always talk about the game in Tampa where it literally he threw 4 touchdowns in a row. Almost 4 consecutive plays, Jameis Winston threw touchdowns. Only bad part is 2 of them were interceptions, so it went back the other way. That's what got him benched. They were 7-9 and what they thought was a Super Bowl contender team. They got rid of him, brought in Tom Brady, they win a Super Bowl. There's different levels. Do I think Jaxson Dart is a level of an NFL starting quarterback? You have yourself a blessed day, Big Dash, as well. Hope you have a good time at church. On my way to church. Oh yeah, that's right. You're on a different time zone. Don't mind me, Dash. Don't mind me. Just having one of those days. Having a senior moment. I could say that because I'm a senior. But there's different levels of NFL talent to be an NFL quarterback. There's different levels. Do I think he has the level to be a starting NFL quarterback? Yes. Do I think he has a higher ceiling than Mitchell Trubisky? Yes. Do I think he's in the top 15 of NFL quarterbacks in the league? I don't know yet. Because like I said, I don't know what to say in reference. If I look at the quarterbacks, tier one quarterbacks, and I'm trying to find a piece of paper. I'm going to have to use my fingers. Tier 1, I'm going to have to go with Stafford, Mahomes still, Josh Allen, Joe Burrows, and Lamar Jackson. So that's 5. Like I'm talking star guys. If I want to go next level, guys that can win Super Bowls, guys that are going to be able to take their teams to the playoffs, you got to go Jalen. So that's 6. You got to go Caleb Williams. That's 7. I want to say Sam Darnold, only because Sam Darnold won a Super Bowl and he's had 2 proficient seasons in a row. So that's 8. I got to go Goff. That's 9. I got to say Jordan Love, if he's healthy, that's 10. I got to throw Dak in there. That's 11. Drake May is 12. Trevor Lawrence, I would say, is 13. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Bo Nix. So that'd be 14 guys that I would take right now over Jaxson Dart. So yeah, Jaxson Dart would be ranked 15th. Okay. Because I don't know what CJ Stroud is going to be. I don't know what Mendoza. So yeah, I would say Jaxson Dart is 15. Don't ask me to repeat that list because I got no fucking clue what that list was when I just read it. When I just thought about it. But there are 14 guys ahead of Jaxson Dart that I would say. So Jaxson Dart to me could be the 15th best quarterback right now in the league, which is the middle of the pack, which is fine. Because like I said, it's really where we're at. Who cares about training camp? Dash, I'm curious about Fala. I'm not even curious. I'm not even bringing up Fala. Ola. Callahan will put Dart straight if he listens. I don't think there's ever a time, except for sliding, that I don't think Jaxson Dart has sat there and said, I'm not listening. I think Jaxson Dart, going back to the only thing, okay, you want me to, I'm going to say this about Jaxson Dart, and I don't think it's a bad thing. Because he's a young guy. But I think adversity at times for Jaxson Dart is not his friend. You go back to USC. He thought to himself, I can't beat out Caleb Williams. I'm transferring out. Instead of staying and fighting for his position, he transferred out to Ole Miss. And I understand that you have an all-world talent in Caleb Williams, but you also have to have enough foresight for yourself that you think I am better than this guy. And instead of fighting for what is his, fighting for your position, you take your NIL deal out and your ball and you go someplace else. There were times last season, and I think this is more on coaching though. There are times at last seasons where things just weren't working for Jaxson Dart. Good examples, that Minnesota game. Good examples, that second Eagle game. And I think he didn't quit, but I think at times he was down on himself. And I need a guy that when things are going shitty, because there's always a time in the NFL, I don't care if your name is Joe Namath, I don't care if it's Joe Montana, I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if it's Tom Brady. You are always going to hit a spot where things are just not going right. And that adversity to me is what makes you a better quarterback. I go back to 86 and Phil Simms, horrific portion of the season. He was just horrific. Bill Parcells pulls him aside before the Minnesota game and says, listen, dude, just be you. Just do you. 4th and 17 to Bobby Johnson turns the whole season around. Because he wasn't believing in himself, and he finally did because he was given that vote of confidence, and we got the first Super Bowl ring. And this is what I say about the venerable Jaxson Dart. I think adversity, he's going to have to learn to push through adversity at times. And like I said, he's going to have to figure it out. I don't think Tremaine Edmonds has Tremaine Edmonds to me, I don't think he's got a lot of miles on him. I think there's guys that you take a look at and you just kind of say, he's a football player. He's to me, Tremaine Edmonds. The one thing that I will say about him is he is a foot at 6'4", 250 pounds. He's 28 years old. He just turned 28 too. So you're a guy that's played in 119 games, started 119 games, has yet to have a season without 100 tackles. To me, he's Zach Thomas. I have no concern. I have no qualms or worries about Tremaine Edmonds. Best part of Dart is he wants to get better just to develop and take the coaching without reverting back to certain. I agree. And I'm sorry I missed you on that one, Dash, but I agree 100% on that. But Tim, he had 500 pressures. Derp. He was only pressured 22% of the time. And I love it because people just kind of need to look at the entire sets. Make sure you're hitting the like button, guys. Hit the like button. Come on, let's get up to 35 likes. We got 100 and something people watching all over the place. Let's go. Let's go. If I spent 20 hours a week in the as a giant content creator, I would need to go to church too. They got Bibles at Church's Chicken. Y'all, you have yourself a blessed day too, Big Dash. Memrod says the West Coast system should help Dart with the stricter routes for wide receivers for Erhard Perkins' system. Dart isn't accurate enough to run. Actually, he is. In the short yard situation, the short yard game, Jaxson Dart he will be very accurate because he can throw on the run. He can throw with velocity. It's when he's got to torque his ass up. And I've said this before, watch that front fucking foot. And this is why I kept telling he reminds me of someone that throws a javelin. Go watch someone that throws a javelin. Go watch a javelin thrower and tell me what his foot looks like. And then go back to the stream and look at the video I just played with Jaxson Dart's foot. And tell me he doesn't look like he's throwing a fucking javelin. But it's footwork. It can be fixed. Footwork can be fixed. I will never fuck with a quarterback's throwing motion ever. And I've said this a bazillion times. You have all these smarter people in the NFL than I. And then they sit there and they will tell you, we can fix his throwing. We're going to make his 3/4 throwing the motion, make it more over the shoulder. We're going to do this. We're going to fix him. It's a fucking muscle memory thing that this kid has had since Pop Warner. That's why it's almost impossible, not impossible, almost impossible to change an NFL's quarterback's throwing motion because you will revert to that, your old motion at some point in time in the game because it's a muscle memory thing. You've been doing it for 12 years before you got to the NFL, if not longer, but people can fix it. But you can fix someone's footwork. There are enough drills that you can change a guy's footwork or work on it enough that even if he only remembers 60% of the time, is still going to help him. I'm not touching the way Jaxson Dart ever throws the ball, ever. LeVar, what's up, brother? I'm here. Let's talk darts. With proper coaching will be the guy. DJ had potential to be the guy, but poor coaching did him in. No, Daniel Jones never had the potential. Daniel Jones is a one-read quarterback. Daniel Jones needs to rely on the running game. People are like, well, look at all what he did in Indianapolis. What happened when Indianapolis's running game went in the shitter? What happened to Daniel Jones? I'm never going to compare those two. I have to go find it. We showed him a bunch of times. But the only problem is I have a new computer. And so not everything's on this computer. I went bougie and I went to the, we upgraded to the newest M5 blah, blah, blah Mac Studio. Pro Football has, Zach Thomas. You don't know Zach Thomas, the former linebacker? Pro Football Focus says Jaxson Dart at 26. I got him at 15. I rattled off 14 other guys. There's probably somebody I missed in that list. There's someone probably that I missed, but I have him at 14. I mean 15. Sorry. And I think that's fair. I think that's where 26 is crazy. Yeah, Zach Thomas, Miami Dolphins linebacker. All he ever did is have 1,000 things. Tim, I was talking about Carter. Oh, okay. Okay, smash. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure this out. Let's see here. That assessment of Dart is right on the money. I haven't heard anyone this on point. Thank you. Because I'm awesome. And I've said this before with Jaxson Dart. I looked at him when we drafted him. I don't think he should have been taken in the first round. But they've said this, and I always go back to Ernie Accorsi. Ernie Accorsi was the first-time young general manager of the Baltimore Colts. John Elway was the prize of his first draft. John Elway came out and says, I am going to play baseball with the fucking Yankees before I sign with the Colts. Ernie Accorsi said, fuck, I'm taking you anyways, motherfucker. I'm taking you. Ownership in Baltimore panicked and traded the pick to Denver. Ernie Accorsi was pissed. They basically went around Ernie Accorsi and traded him. Fast forward to 2004, Eli Manning. Ernie Accorsi moved heaven and earth. And people will say in the beginning, especially with Deshaun Merriman, the way he was playing, Philip Rivers, that we overpaid to get Eli Manning. But at the end of the day, you got 2 Super Bowl rings. And then a couple of years afterwards, after that draft, I think he was when he retired the year before the Super Bowl. Ernie Accorsi said, the one lesson that I learned in Baltimore was when your quarterback is there, when your guy is there, that you feel is going to lead your franchise for the next 10, 15 years and bring you home championships, you do everything you possibly can to get him. And he said, I learned that lesson in Baltimore because he had told Baltimore ownership, I am taking John Elway. And they were like, no, you can't because he's going to go play with the Yankees. And then Ernie Accorsi says, when they went around my back, I learned my lesson that when your quarterback is there, you fucking go get him. And that's what he did. So the Giants trading back into the first round to get Jaxson Dart, I don't agree with it because I think you could have Jaxson Dart in the first half of the second round. But I understood it that if your quarterback is there, you move heaven and earth to get him. Now, this is the question, though. That was the quarterback for Brian Daboll. Joe Shane came out and said that he didn't want Dart, he wanted Sanders. That was not John Harbaugh's pick. So we got to kind of wait and see what happens and wait and see how this plays out. Do Dart and the new Mormon linebacker go to church together? I don't know. Do we have a Mormon linebacker? Zach Thomas is a Hall of Famer. Tremaine is pretty good. No, I'm just saying he's like Zach Thomas in the fact that all he does is pile up 100-yard tackle seasons. And actually, if you take a look statistically at Zach Thomas and Tremaine Edmonds, they're not in their first whatever amount of years, they're not that far behind. If you take a look within the first 7 years, the stats are pretty eerily similar. So, but I'm not saying that he was that. Jones was a no-read quarterback, stated as primary target in the route until he threw the ball. His eyes brought the defense to the ball away. You're right. So you're going into the season with a short passing game, setting up the long pass and use the run to keep team's offense. Got to get a work. Well, that's the thing that got to get a workable run. That's what John Harbaugh already said. I don't think John Harbaugh is delusional enough to think that he's got a running game with Cam Skattebo coming off an injury and Tyrone Tracy. I still think there's going to be a move made maybe in camp, or there's going to be a move made sometime at the end of camp where the Giants are going to bring somebody in. But yes, I mean that honestly, if you take a look at the Giants that way, yeah. When you had the system in Chicago, you had Howard and you had Tariq Cohen. You had your banger back in 2001 in Howard, and then you had your speed guy in Cohen. I think they're thinking kind of the same thing with Cam Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy. That Cam Skattebo's Howard, you're banging back, and then Tyrone Tracy's going to be your speed guy. I don't fully see that. I don't fully see that yet, which is fine, because that's just, I mean, that's the way it is. But I think you have an idea. And then they also had, they had David Montgomery in there at one point in time as well. They had David Montgomery in there at one time as well. Howard was a pretty good back for the early on. Jordan Howard had 2,000-yard seasons, but like I said, I still think they're going to do something. I think they will do something. Ernie Accorsi was a gangster. Ernie Accorsi understood. He understood. You go and get your guy. And like I said, I always loved that about him, that he fucking said, I am going to get my guy. I saw the fallout from what happened with John Elway, that I'm not going to do this again with my guy and Eli Manning. I'm just laughing at the I'm just cracking up about the LeBron James to Philadelphia. We're not gonna get it. We're not gonna get into that. But I'm just laughing about LeBron James to Philadelphia. No, I don't fucking see that. I don't see that. But to get back to early on what we talked about, I'm still hearing Malik Nabers week 3. I'm still hearing. I heard briefly on Thursday. It wasn't Friday. It was because we left on Friday, or we left on Thursday. I don't remember what day we left. I'm getting old. But I heard the Cam Skattebo rumor. I think it was in the car, so maybe it was Friday morning, that Cam and we heard this from Cam himself, that he's got a lot of box to check before he can go full speed in training camp. Just because you take a handoff in shorts and mandatory mini does not mean you're ready. And even he says that. And like I said, the person that I spoke to is an NFL person, and he even said, listen, Tim, from a pulse and a Debo that this type of injury is very difficult to come back from. I didn't know Jack Kelly was Mormon. I always love people, and I'm not making fun of you, Joe Ferris. I just love people like, well, he's Mormon, he's a Republican, he's this. I don't give a fuck. I've said this before. I said this about when I told people I would have taken Caleb Williams, like, well, you don't know anything because Caleb Williams cried and Caleb Williams wears nail polish and this. I already said it. I don't care if my quarterback wears pink press-on nails and a skirt and it's from fucking Pluto. You win me a fucking game, I don't care. I could give two shits. That's like when people are like, well, he's Mormon. I don't care. Don't matter to me. Oh, Carter's Muslim. Doesn't bother me any. Doesn't raise my dander. Maybe it should. Because I got some great hair. But that's what I'm hearing. Those are the things that I'm hearing. Joe Spano, you want to come on for a minute? I don't know if you're around still. Okay, I'm going to drop in the Spano spot, see if he's around for a minute. So Joe can talk about all the guests that we're lining up for next week. We have a like I said, I'm excited about the Solomon Wilcox thing. I shouldn't have said anything about it, but I got an email confirming it. Because I always go back to the Amon Green shit. Well, Joe, jump on real quick. We did a whole build up for a week about Amon Green coming on the motherfucker on a live, and the motherfucker doesn't show up. Then he shows up 2 weeks later, and he doesn't want to fucking leave. I'm literally watching the clock going, dude, I got to go get my kid at school. And so I've been talking to you for 2.5 hours. training camp is going to be interesting because there are so many things that we need to look. I think I hate the fact they're going to fucking West Virginia. I hate the fact they are making me fucking drive to West Virginia, 6.5 hours away. I hate it. I got friends that went to West Virginia. I got friends that live in West Virginia, and I have friends that tell me there's people in West Virginia that don't want to be in West Virginia. And I got to go to West Virginia, but I think it's actually a good thing for the Giants. I think it's a good thing to get out. It's the first camp. It's a good thing to get out of the city. It's a good thing to get out of everyone's head. It's a good thing to move forward and kind of see what this team has. I'm excited. I'm excited about it. Big Joe Spano, what's going on, my brother?
Not too much. Did you have a great 4th, Timmy?
I always have a good 4th. I always have a good time. I was just built that way. But let's quickly talk about these injuries to Malik Nabers and Cam Skattebo. The Malik Nabers thing, it doesn't bother me, Joe, because I've been saying week 3 for a month now. The Cam Skattebo thing, he said it, and this is why I think I think it's news, but it's not news, because he said it during the town hall in June that he's got a lot of boxes to check before he can really get on the field in training camp. So, but to hear that he may not start by week 1, and I always go to the point, John Harbaugh never says that. John Harbaugh says they expect Malik Nabers to be ready by week 1, or they expect Nabers to, week 1's the projected date. But is that the projected date to start, or is that the projected date to get him back on the field?
As far as Malik, I'm kind of with you. I'm like, hey, when they get him back on the field, they get him back on the field. Because, again, we've talked about it many times. It's not about this year. This year is about being competitive, not winning 4 games, but winning closer to 7 or 8, being relevant in December, not having that E next to your name in the standings before Thanksgiving, and developing Jaxson Dart. So I'm much more concerned about Malik Nabers in 2027 and 2028 than I am in 2026. Whatever he does this year,
here's the thing about Malik Nabers, though. We have to pick up his 5th-year option May of next year.
No, that's fair.
We are in year 3 of Malik Nabers.
Right. No, that's a fair point. So to that point, let's say it even goes to week 4 before he sees the field, week 5. But from week 8 on, he looks like the Malik Nabers of his rookie year. You feel pretty comfortable picking up the option. And going forward, you're pretty confident going forward in 2027 that you got the Malik Nabers you hoped for. That's my bigger concern there. Cam, I am much more bullish on Cam being ready to go in week 1, and it has nothing to do with Cam being Cam. It's more this type of injury and how these guys heal from this. The key to it is getting the flexion back up and down and side to side and whatnot. And by getting that surgery done quickly, right away, relocating the ankle quickly, that's a key, because I had a not dissimilar injury when I fell on ice on my way to a morning radio shift. And because I'm not an elite athlete, you kind of lay around the hospital for a while waiting for your orthopedic doctor to get there and have a clear operating room and everything else. So I laid around 5 or 6 hours. They relocated my ankle, and I just sat there in the emergency room doped up on pain medicine. As a result of them not doing my surgery in an hour or so and doing it 6 or 7 hours, I had a long, grueling rehab to get that flexion back and a lot of the issues. So I'm pretty bullish from everything I've read by orthopedic doctors and trainers and whatnot that Cam will be whatever Cam was going to be and will be ready to go with a reasonably full workload by week 1.
Why do you think that Giant fans over romanticize at times about these two guys? Because I always hear about Jaxson Dart's deep ball accuracy. And then we find out that his deepest pass completion was 44 yards, and everyone was right. He probably threw the ball 12.
Yes.
But his longest pass was 44 yards, and Cam Skattebo's only had one run over 20 yards the entire time he was playing. It's one of these things that I look at some things statistically, and I look at and I break it down film wise. I kind of look at it, and it's like, okay, some of these guys, and you know what it is, mainly it's content creators are over embellishing some of the things they did last year. Because I also kept hearing that, Jaxson Dart was always under duress. He was always under pressure. And then it turned out he was only pressured 21% of the snaps out of 317.
Big chunk of the pressure Jaxson Dart was under was created on his own because he does not get the ball off on schedule very often.
No, but why do you think there's this? And maybe it's just the fact that we haven't been good for so long, but why do certain, let's say, content creators over embellish and overlook certain things that Jaxson Dart does well, and certain things that, like I said, I keep talking about his footwork, and I've been talking about his footwork since the combines. And I've tell people over and over again, watch a guy throw a javelin. Watch that front foot on the way he throws a javelin, and then go watch the Jaxson Dart film I posted earlier and tell me what you see.
Well, to your point, it was a great piece of film watching by you, because, hey, I'm no quarterback footwork guru, but one thing I did learn in my years covering this sport is the football will go where you point your front foot. So if you don't point your front foot to the target, guess what? The ball is going to miss, and his front foot doesn't point to the target. That's why it goes everywhere. To your point about the romanticism.
Oh, wait. Going back to the second, but people that didn't watch, can I play the film again? Because watch Brandon Allen. And I think that's that one video file. It's the professional here because of the mighty FanDuel, FanDuel.com, number one sportsbook in America. You open that. Okay, here we go. Now watch Brandon Allen to the right, number 12. And here we go. Watch Brandon Allen. Kind of focus that. You watch the way his foot is pointed. Then you watch Jaxson Dart's foot. And if you go back and you watch the footwork and see how Brandon Allen's foot at times is running parallel, and you still look like Jaxson Dart kind of looks like a duck. And then you watch the Brandon Allen foot on the throw, and then you watch the Jaxson Dart foot. One is almost parallel. Jaxson Dart's foot is almost pointing straight or totally diagonal like a duck. And that's when I got the analogy that if you watch it, it's almost like watching a guy throwing a javelin. Because if you ever I threw a javelin in high school, and I only did it a couple meets because of the fact that we didn't have anyone to throw the javelin. So I threw the javelin.
Tim's big and strong. Let him throw it. He'll figure it out.
Didn't fucking work. I still think somebody's tire in the parking lot got popped. But if you ever thrown a javelin, to your point, it's kind of where your foot is pointed is where the javelin's going to go. And it's very important to throw the javelin in that. The thing goes like this. And it's very important to put javelin in the field in the play. Now, I didn't know this, but the reason, especially even with the discus and the shot put, the reason why the field starts slow and goes out like this, because of the fact that there is so much room for error in regards to where you're putting that motherfucker. And when I watched Jaxson Dart at the combine, I'm like, oh my God, he looked like me. He looked just on the deep pass. He looks like he's torquing up like I tried to throw the fucking javelin. And then I watched his foot, and I kept telling, they kept telling me, no, watch your foot, watch where you're planting your foot, watch how you're planting, because that's where the javelin's going to go. And that's when I saw this. I was like, okay, there's the, but this is something that But this is something that you can improve on. This is something you can fix. And Blackbird, congratulations. I'm glad you killed it in the chorus choir last Sunday. My wife is singing chorus choir right now as well. We actually bought a karaoke machine yesterday to help her practice, which was funny because we put it in front of my one son's door and I started saying, I want to know what love is coming out of the thing. So he really enjoyed that. He's just glad because he's going to the beach on Monday with his friends. But congratulations. But if you look at that, to the point that I was bringing up, Joe, I'm never going to change a guy's throwing motion.
No.
I'm never going to try to fix that because you're never going to fix that. But you can fix footwork.
Mm-hmm. You can fix that muscle memory by drilling it, and Brian Callahan's the right guy to do it. If it can be fixed on this player, this is the coach to do it.
Right.
And we'll see. Again, it all goes back to, if you read comments over the last couple of months in the chat, I've heard guys go 4 wins, 5 wins for the Giants all the way up to 11. There's a lot to like on this roster, but there are a lot of questions. The uncertainty of the development of the quarterback, the injuries we've discussed, the secondary, the defensive line. So it's very hard to put double-digit wins on a football team that's laden with this many questions and this much uncertainty. There's reason for optimism.
That the fact that right now teams are still going to do what they've done the last 6 years against the Giants.
Yes.
They're going to run at them and tell you to stop the run. You stop the run, then we can talk.
That's it. Absolutely. But you would ask me a very interesting question. Why do – I won't call them fellow content creators because a lot of times I don't think some of these other content creators are in the same space as you their limitations.
I'm a beat reporter.
Right. Well, whatever they are and whatever they do.
And we're beat reporters.
Right. A lot of it's their – and again, this is going to sound harsh, but it's also true. Their inability or lack of knowledge when looking at game tape or film or whatever it is. They don't know what they're looking at, so they rely on what they read somewhere in somebody else's take or the venerable Pro Football Jocus, as you like to call it. And Pro Football Jocus gave Cam Skattebo rave reviews for his work at the running back position. By the way, if you know anything about Pro Football Focus, it's a bunch of people in third world countries that know nothing about football who are trained up in a very short course by the Pro Football Focus staff to watch film and grade film. So these are not people that you would ever use to grade film anywhere. That's what Pro Football Focus does. That's why the results are so skewed compared to the reality in many cases.
But before you get into that point, though, Pro Football Focus, someone pointed in, had Jaxson Dart ranked 26th. I ran the list earlier, an hour ago on the show, and I probably missed somebody. But I said earlier that I picked him. I have him around 15th, and it was funny though because I mentioned a bunch of guys, and I was counting on my fingers and my toes because I can't find a fucking pen. That it just happened that he came out 15th on my list. Why do you think there's such a disparaging? I'm not going to say disparaging, but there's such a gap between Pro Football Focus and I've seen other rankings that have him around 15, 16, but between 15 to 16 to 26, that seems like a very big difference because a lot of guys in that middle group are going to be like Malik Willis and Mendoza and Aaron Rodgers and guys like that. So it's just a weird group for him to kind of be lumped into by someone like Pro Football Focus.
I just think there's inherent flaws in their grading system, the people doing the grading and everything else that goes with it, that you do get these wide swings. You even look at some of their offensive line evaluations. The way they calculate things, they put so much value into certain things that is disproportionate to the actual value that you need. It's just a very flawed. It's a nice thing to have because for people who don't have the knowledge to figure a lot of this out for themselves, it gives them something to quantify results. And then it gets mistaken and it gets used as gospel when it shouldn't be. So that's a lot of the realities, and that's why I think everybody's so bullish on Cam, despite more relevant advanced metrics showing that he was okay.
Average.
He was okay. He was okay. He was more like the very simple yards per carry average. 4.1 yards per carry for a running back in today's NFL is nothing special. It's actually below league average.
Well, that's like 62% completion percentage is technically in this league, because you got guys that are completing 75% of their passes is below average. I had mentioned that first of all, I don't want to go to West Virginia. I'm not gonna lie. Now, I'm not looking forward to spending a week in West Virginia. If there was any place in the world that I thought of that I would say, hey, Tim, you're going to go to Miami again earlier next week, then you're going to have to come back, and 2 weeks later, you got to go to fucking West Virginia. I don't want to go there. But in some ways, I think the first portion of the Giant training camp in West Virginia may not be a bad thing, especially with an entire new coaching staff, an entire new system. You're kind of getting back to old school. You're kind of getting like when we were up in Albany. You're kind of getting you're getting away from all the distractions that come with training at MetLife, training at the facility. And I kind of think that installing a new offense, people can't forget this, Joe. We're installing a new offense. Right. We're installing a new defense. Everyone on the staff is new. We have a plethora of new players that have to come in, not only and learn the New York Giants, but learn the system. So honestly, I think it's a good thing that we're going out in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia, because where this is a very real, they're staying at a beautiful resort, but you're really in the middle of fucking nowhere in West Virginia. I actually think it's a good thing.
I think more teams should go back to this on an annual basis. Go to, the Green Bay Packers should go back to Whitewater College, where they used to go, some Division III college, and do their training camp. I think more teams should do this for a big chunk of their training camp and get away. Because when you have teams, as they're doing now, because they have these training facilities that are good enough at their home stadium to actually run training camp, they go home to the distractions of everyday life. They don't get away the way they used to in camp, as you said. Plus, they're always in remote places, so it's hard to get in trouble. I think it's a great idea. I think going forward, the Giants should do something like this every year. I wouldn't necessarily do it in West Virginia, Albany, Pace, Fairleigh Dickinson, whatever they want to do. Do something like that. I think it's good. Well,
you also lose the financial value aspect of it, because if anyone's been to the Giant training camp, it's where they sell shit. It's where they sell tickets. It's where they sell merchandise. It's where they sell food, concessions and everything else.
I think you'll ultimately make more money having winning football in December, so that way, even though you have tickets sold, you actually have people in the building to buy the full-priced hot dogs.
Well, we're not used to winning football in December. So.
Yeah, well, let's
get there first, and there. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Now, we only have 36 likes. Let's get to 40 likes before we leave.
You would ask me something else about why do so many content creators think that Dart actually throws a good deep ball. It's because they don't look at information correctly. If you go back and look at Jaxson Dart in college, he had overall very good deep ball numbers against like St. Mary's School for the Blind and all of that, because
Furman,
it was Ole Miss. The guys would be 30 yards wide open. He'd throw a ball that up in the air, come down with icicles on it, but it didn't matter because his guy was so open. He'd just stand there, wait for it to come down. There wasn't a guy within 30 yards. All of a sudden now you're playing SEC competition and those deep ball numbers go down. But if you look at an isolated stat that averages
to 2 interceptions versus Florida.
Right. You look at the numbers overall and they average all together, they look pretty nice. But you have to dig deeper, look through game logs, look through different things. A lot of times these content creators, as you talk about, and others, they're part-time workers. They have a regular job. They have limitations of knowledge and ability. And as a result, they just come up with these takes because they've learned how to have takes, but there's nothing behind it. So you've got to dig deeper. You've got to find which stats actually have value, which advanced metrics have value, which stuff are a joke. And you got to look and you got to pour through numbers, look at film, and figure out what you're actually seeing and what's actually there.
We're going to be wrapping up in a minute here, but to your point, even looking at stats and metrics, if you looked at the stats and metrics of Jaxson Dart in college, you would notice that his completion percentage dropped from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. And one of the biggest things is his off ball target percentage dropped exponentially in the fourth quarter in college, which led me to believe, led me to believe and think that a lot of his issues had to do with his inability and his footwork, which is causing him to completion percentage drop, and when your off ball target percentage drops, that's the percentage that you have. And it's in his college career, the fourth quarter was the lowest percentage of his entire career, was always in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. That's a telling sign that you're not doing something that allows you to put the ball on target. So we have to take a look, but I do have to wrap up, because Mrs. Online Big Blue is home and about. Make sure you're hitting the like button. So I want to go talk to her. And for 126 people that are still watching, really do appreciate you as always. We got a lot of fun guests. Joe is working on some guests right now for the show.
One is confirmed.
Do you want to talk about who's confirmed?
Yeah, Gary Myers is confirmed, and that's going to be the week before. That's going to be on. It's scheduled for the 20th.
Okay.
So before camp starts, he can obviously give his insights on the team as a whole, and several other things, including his insight on the Shane and Harbaugh relationship, because he had some good details on X after the length of the extension came out. So that's confirmed. I have confirmed timing and scheduling will be finalized. Sean Salisbury to return, which will be great, and that'll be around the start of camp. And that'll be great discussion, because he coaches quarterbacks on a high school and college level. A great discussion with you and him on footwork and what he sees with Jaxson Dart's footwork, and what needs to be improved, how it needs to be improved, and how likely it is to be successful.
We also have Solomon Wilcox is confirmed for this Wednesday, but that will be a pre-recorded pod, which will probably be up on Thursday or Friday, depending. We also have a couple other guests that we're working on for the week of training camp. So we're going to have some other people on. So it's, like I've said before, ESPN is the greatest people in the world. I just love ESPN. So we're going to make sure we have all that talking too. We're going to have our show on Monday and Tuesday as well. So we're going to go back to our regular schedule. Got a big show coming up Monday. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I think, like I said, I think that we're just going to have to wait and kind of see with these injuries. We're going to have to see what comes up. Make sure you're hitting the like button on the way out. Make sure you guys tune in for the big show on Monday and Tuesday. Then we'll also go back on Sunday. I will not be here Sunday of next week, so we will not have the Sunday show, but make sure that you're in and around and available. So it's like I said, guys, we training camp's going to be here before you fucking know it. This is Tim. This is New York Giants Straight Talk with our special guest, not even our special guest, with the Joe Spano. Let the Spano spot. Don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Hope everyone had yourself a safe Fourth. Go back to work with a happy day and a happy song in your heart. This is Tim, brought to you by Smile Smashes. See you later. Again, this is Tim. This is New York Giants Straight Talk, brought to you by the mighty FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com, number one sportsbook in America. And we're out of here.
That motherfucker must have lost his goddamn mind.